May 2nd, 1863. Dear Diary, tonight I walked into a room full of men who want me dead. What I discovered there was worse than assassination. It was a plan to murder hope itself. The third Thursday had arrived. The Baltimore warehouse meeting that Chase had revealed was happening tonight, and we'd spent 3 days preparing for what might be the most dangerous infiltration of my life. You cannot go personally, Mary had argued that morning. Send Hamilton, send Rose, send anyone but yourself. But I'd made my decision. If this organization has been manipulating my entire life, if they killed my father and orchestrated my presidency, then I need to see them with my own eyes. I need to understand who they really are. But as our carriage approached the Baltimore warehouse district at dusk, I realized I wasn't prepared for what I was about to witness. Rose Greenough had procured authentic membership medallions from her old contacts. Hamilton had coached me on the organization's protocols and recognition signals. Stanton had positioned loyal troops around the warehouse district, ready to intervene if things went wrong. Mary had made me promise to wear a concealed bulletproof vest of her own design, thin steel plates sewn into a specially tailored coat. The password is prosperity through division, Hamilton reminded me as we approached the warehouse. You'll be presenting yourself as a new recruit, a wealthy industrialist from Illinois who's been profiting from war contracts and wants to ensure the conflict continues. And if they recognize me, then Stanton's men will have about 30 seconds to breach the building before you're killed. So try not to be recognized. Rose had worked wonders with theatrical makeup and prosthetics. My distinctive beard was hidden under a false chin and jowls. My tall frame was disguised with a slight stoop and heavy coat. Glasses obscured my eyes. Even my voice had been trained to a different pitch and accent. Looking in the mirror, I'd barely recognized myself as Jonathan Blackwood, wealthy industrialist and war profiteer. The warehouse appeared abandoned from the outside, but as we approached, a guard emerged from the shadows. His hand was inside his coat, clearly holding a weapon. Password, he demanded. Prosperity through division, I replied in Blackwood's voice. The guard examined our medallions carefully, then nodded. Third floor. Meeting starts at 8 bells precisely. The warehouse interior was nothing like its shabby exterior. The first floor was indeed abandoned and dusty, maintaining the illusion. But hidden stairs led to a transformed second floor, richly appointed with carpets, gas lighting, and comfortable furniture. And above that, the third floor had been converted into an elegant meeting hall. Approximately 40 men were already gathered, talking quietly in small groups. I recognized several faces from Rose's membership list: senators, bankers, industrialists. But there were also faces I didn't know, men whose very anonymity suggested deep power. Comment below. How many would you trust in a room like this? Hamilton and Rose positioned themselves strategically around the room while I tried to blend in with the other attendees. A servant offered champagne, which I accepted but didn't drink. I needed all my faculties sharp. First time attending? A man asked beside me. He was perhaps 60, expensively dressed, with the bearing of old European aristocracy. Indeed, I replied in Blackwood's voice. Though I've been contributing to the cause for some time. War contracts. Uniforms primarily. Both sides need clothing, and I found it profitable to ensure both sides remain well supplied. The man smiled approvingly, then said something that made my blood run cold. Excellent. Though I should warn you, tonight's meeting may make your uniform contracts seem small-scale. We're voting on the American solution tonight. The American solution? You haven't been briefed? Oh my. Well, you'll see soon enough. Quite ambitious, really. The council has been planning it for 3 years. Before I could press for details, a bell chimed 8 times. The conversation ceased immediately, and everyone moved to seats arranged in concentric circles facing a raised platform. 3 men ascended to the platform. The center figure was elderly, perhaps 75, but his eyes were sharp and calculating. He wore the medallion prominently on his chest, but his was gold where ours were silver. Brothers of the Eternal Order, he began, his voice carrying easily through the silent room. We gather tonight to consider the culmination of 20 years of careful planning. The American solution is ready for final authorization. My heart pounded. Whatever this American solution was, it had been in development for 2 decades, since before I'd even entered national politics. As you know, the speaker continued, Our goal has always been to prevent American unification under a strong central government. A united America, with its resources and industrial capacity, would inevitably challenge European economic dominance. Several men nodded. This matched what Chase had told us, but hearing it stated so openly was still shocking. The current civil war has served us well. Both sides are financially exhausted, their populations are war-weary, and their governments are weak. But our intelligence suggests that neither side will collapse quickly enough. Lincoln shows more resilience than expected, and Davis has proven surprisingly capable at maintaining Confederate morale. At the mention of my name, I forced myself to remain perfectly still, showing no reaction. Therefore, the American solution proposes simultaneous removal of both leaders. Not through obvious assassination, which would create martyrs, but through carefully orchestrated tragedies that appear to be unfortunate accidents of war. A second man on the platform unrolled a large map showing both Washington and Richmond. The plan requires precise coordination. On May 15th, at exactly 9 o'clock in the evening, explosive charges will detonate in both the White House and the Confederate Executive Mansion. He pointed to marked locations. The devices have been positioned over the past 6 months by our operatives in both governments. They're disguised as structural support beams, invisible to casual inspection. May 15th. That was only 13 days away. Both presidents will be killed instantly, along with key cabinet members and advisors. The explosions will be blamed on sabotage by opposing forces. Washington will blame Confederate agents. Richmond will blame Union spies. But then the third man on the platform revealed something that made the plot even more horrific. The beauty of the American solution lies in what follows the assassinations. Without clear leadership, both governments will fragment. In the Union, Chase will emerge as the voice of stability. He's already positioned himself as the constitutional successor. My jaw tightened hearing Chase's name. So he'd known about this all along. In the Confederacy, we have General Beauregard prepared to seize military control, arguing that civilian government has failed. Within weeks, both nations will splinter further. The Union will divide along sectional lines: New England, Mid-Atlantic, Midwest, West. The Confederacy will collapse into competing military fiefdoms. Like if this plan terrifies you as much as it terrified Lincoln. The speaker smiled coldly. Within 6 months, instead of 2 Americas, there will be 8 or 9 smaller nations, all economically dependent on European loans and trade, all militarily weak, all competing with each other rather than posing any threat to established European powers. The room erupted in applause. These men, Americans all, were applauding a plan to shatter their own nation into impotent fragments. I felt physically sick. This wasn't just about assassination or political manipulation. This was about destroying the very idea of American democracy, of proving that self-government couldn't work, of ensuring that rule by aristocratic elites remained the global standard. Questions? The lead speaker asked. A man near me stood. What about General Grant? He's proven difficult to predict or control. Grant will die at Vicksburg, came the casual reply. A Confederate sniper, already positioned, with a clear shot. His death is scheduled for May 10th, 5 days before the main operation. It will demoralize Union forces and weaken Lincoln's military position just before his own removal. They were planning to murder Grant, Lincoln, Davis, and countless others in a coordinated strike designed to shatter America. The scope was breathtaking and horrifying. The vote is called, the lead speaker announced. All in favor of authorizing the American solution, show your medallions. Around the room, men raised their silver medallions. I watched in horror as approximately 35 of the 40 attendees voted in favor of national destruction. The 5 who didn't vote, were they opposed or simply abstaining? I tried to memorize their faces. But then something happened that I didn't expect. One of the non-voters stood and challenged the plan. Brother Chairman, the man said, his voice firm despite obvious nervousness. I request permission to speak against this authorization. The lead speaker's face darkened. You may speak, Brother Harrison, but choose your words carefully. Harrison was young, perhaps 30, well-dressed, but not ostentatiously so. The American solution violates our founding principle. We exist to guide American development, not to destroy it. Shattering the nation into fragments serves European interests Yes, but at what cost to our own principles? Our principles, the chairman replied coldly, are to prevent American unification that threatens global stability. But there's a difference between preventing unification and causing active destruction. We've always worked through influence and guidance, not mass murder and political chaos. Several other men shifted uncomfortably. Harrison was articulating doubts that others clearly shared. Brother Harrison, the chairman said with dangerous calm, are you suggesting we abandon 20 years of planning? Are you questioning the wisdom of the Council of Founders? I'm questioning whether murder on this scale aligns with our stated values. The order was founded to preserve civilization, not to destroy it. What you're proposing isn't preservation, it's annihilation. The chairman nodded slowly. Your concerns are noted. Brothers, we will take a brief recess to allow for private discussions. Resume in 15 minutes. As the room broke into smaller conversations, I found myself facing an impossible choice. I could signal Stanton to raid the meeting now, arrest everyone present, and stop the plot. But we'd only capture the middle-level operatives. The true leaders of the organization would escape and simply recruit new members. Or I could maintain my cover, gather more intelligence about the organization's structure, and identify the higher leadership. But every minute I waited was a minute closer to May 15th and the death of thousands. Hamilton caught my eye across the room. His expression asked the same question. What do we do? Share if you think Lincoln should raid now, or wait for more intel. Before I could decide, someone tapped my shoulder. I turned to find the elderly gentleman I'd spoken with earlier, but his expression had changed from friendly to suspicious. Mr. Blackwood, he said quietly, might I have a word with you privately? My heart rate spiked, but I kept Blackwood's voice steady. Of course. He led me to a corner away from the main group. I'm curious about something. You said you supply uniforms to both sides. That's correct. Then perhaps you can explain why the contract records show no Jonathan Blackwood among approved suppliers for either Union or Confederate forces. My mind raced. Someone had checked our cover story, found the holes. How quickly could I signal Hamilton and Rose? I work through intermediaries, I said, trying to salvage the situation. Discretion is essential when one is supplying both sides. Discretion? Yes. The man smiled without warmth. Or perhaps you're not Jonathan Blackwood at all. Perhaps you're someone much more interesting. He reached toward my face, and instinctively I jerked back. The movement dislodged part of Rose's careful makeup, revealing a glimpse of my real features beneath. The man's eyes widened in recognition. My God, you're... I didn't let him finish, but what happened next created chaos that saved my life. Hamilton, seeing my cover blown, acted immediately. He pulled out a concealed pistol and fired a shot into the ceiling. The room erupted in panic. Federal agents. Hamilton shouted. Everyone on the ground. It was a bluff. Stanton's men were outside and couldn't enter quickly, but it bought us seconds. Rose moved toward me, creating a barrier between me and the man who'd recognized me. The president, someone shouted. Lincoln is here. The carefully planned meeting dissolved into chaos. Some men rushed for exits. Others pulled weapons. The 3 platform speakers disappeared through a hidden door I hadn't noticed before. Hamilton grabbed my arm. We need to leave. Now. But as we moved toward the stairs, I saw Harrison, the young man who'd challenged the American solution, being grabbed by 2 larger men. They were clearly going to kill him for his dissent. I could escape now, get the information we'd gathered to Stanton, and live to fight another day. Or I could help Harrison, who'd shown the courage to oppose the conspiracy from within and risk everything. Mary would tell me to escape. Stanton would tell me to escape. Every logical, tactical consideration said to escape. But I didn't become president to make safe choices. Hamilton, help him. I pointed to Harrison. Sir, we don't have time. I'm not leaving him to die for having a conscience. Hamilton swore, but moved toward Harrison. A shot rang out, one of the organization's men firing at us. The bullet struck my chest, but Mary's armor vest stopped it, though the impact knocked me backward. Rose appeared beside me, her own pistol drawn. Can you move? Yes. Get Harrison. The chaos intensified as more shots were fired. Then, finally, we heard what we'd been waiting for. Stanton's troops breaching the building. Federal troops. Surrender your weapons. The remaining organization members scattered like rats. Some escaped through hidden exits. Others were caught by Stanton's soldiers. But the leaders, the three platform speakers, were gone, along with at least a dozen others who'd known about the secret passages. We'd captured perhaps 20 men, including some notable figures who would have significant intelligence value. But we'd lost the top leadership and failed to prevent them from warning the broader organization. Harrison lay on the floor, bleeding from a shoulder wound, but alive. I knelt beside him. "Why?" he gasped. "Why did you save me?" "Because you showed courage that most men in that room lacked. Because we're going to need people like you who believe in principles over profit." But as Stanton's men secured the building, one of them found something that revealed the conspiracy went even deeper than we'd imagined. A soldier approached Stanton carrying a leather portfolio. "Sir, we found this in a hidden compartment behind the platform. You need to see this immediately." Stanton opened the portfolio, his face going pale. He handed it to me without a word. Inside were detailed files on every major political and military leader in both the Union and Confederacy. But these weren't intelligence reports. They were genealogies, family histories going back generations, with notations about bloodline suitability and hereditary loyalty markers. "They're not just manipulating politics," I said, understanding dawning. "They're trying to control who rises to power based on ancestry. They've been tracking family lines for generations, promoting certain families while suppressing others." One file caught my own. It showed my family line traced back to the 1600s, with notations about acceptable democratic tendencies and controllable ambition levels. Next to my father's death date was a single word: accelerated. They hadn't just killed my father to advance my career. They'd been tracking my family for 2 centuries, deciding whether we were suitable to be allowed into positions of power. "This is eugenics," Hamilton said, reading over my shoulder. "Political eugenics. They're trying to breed a ruling class that will naturally align with their interests." "How many families?" I asked, flipping through the files. "Hundreds," Stanton replied. "Maybe thousands. And it's not just American families. There are European family lines here too. This organization isn't just manipulating current politics. They're trying to control the future genetic composition of leadership itself." I found Jefferson Davis's file. Similar notations, similar ancestral tracking. The organization had been monitoring both our families for generations, deciding whether we were suitable puppets for their agenda. Mary arrived at the warehouse just as we were processing this information. Rose must have sent word. She took one look at my face and knew something profound had shaken me. "Abraham." I showed her the files. Her face went through shock, disgust, and rage in quick succession. "They think they own us," she said quietly. "They think they own humanity itself." But then Harrison, being tended by a military doctor, revealed something that gave us hope. "Mr. President," Harrison called out weakly, "there's something you should know. I'm not the only one who opposed the American solution. There's a faction within the order that believes it's gone too far, that's lost its original purpose." "How many in this faction?" "Maybe 30% of the membership. We've been quietly organizing, gathering evidence of the corruption, waiting for the right moment to break away and expose the leadership." "Why didn't you act before now?" "Because we were afraid. The leadership has shown what happens to dissenters. But tonight, seeing you here, seeing that the president himself is willing to fight this conspiracy, it gives us courage." Stanton knelt beside Harrison. "Are you willing to testify? To provide names and evidence?" "More than that. I can get you into the real headquarters. Not this meeting hall, but the place where the Council of Founders actually operates. The place where the decision-makers gather." "Where?" Harrison smiled grimly. "You're going to find this ironic. It's in Washington. Has been for 50 years. Hidden in plain sight where no one would think to look." "Where in Washington?" I demanded. "The Library of Congress. The entire organization's archives are hidden in sealed rooms beneath the main library. Every genealogical file, every manipulation plan, every assassin's contract, all of it, preserved and cataloged like legitimate historical records." This was exactly what we needed. Not just to stop the May 15th attack, but to dismantle the organization completely. "Can you get us inside?" Stanton asked. "I can, but we need to move quickly. By tomorrow morning, the leadership will know the Baltimore meeting was compromised. They'll start destroying evidence and activating contingency plans." I looked at Mary, Hamilton, Rose, and Stanton. We were exhausted. We were outmanned. and we were fighting an enemy that had centuries of practice in manipulation and control. But we also had something they didn't expect: people within their own ranks who remembered what the organization was supposed to be, who believed in principles over power, who were ready to fight for a different future. "We raid the Library of Congress tonight," I said. "Harrison will guide us. We secure the archives before they can destroy them. And we use that evidence to expose not just the American solution, but the entire apparatus of control they've built." "Mr. President," Stanton cautioned, "if we move tonight, we won't have time for proper planning. If it's a trap—" "Everything is a trap," I interrupted. "But we can't let them destroy that evidence. This might be our only chance to prove what we're fighting against." Hook 8. But as we prepared to leave for Washington, one of Stanton's soldiers reported something that changed everything. "Sir, we've identified one of the men who escaped. We caught him on the street trying to flee. He had this telegram partially written, ready to send." The soldier handed Stanton the message. It was addressed to Confederate Secretary of War James Seddon, warning him about the May 15th attack on Jefferson Davis. "Someone in the organization was trying to warn the Confederacy," Mary said, reading over Stanton's shoulder. "But why?" Harrison struggled to sit up despite his wound. "Because not everyone in the order wants both leaders dead. Some of us believe that Davis, like Lincoln, is more valuable alive than as a martyr. That telegram was probably from my faction, trying to give Davis a chance to survive." I stared at the telegram. If we let it be sent, we'd be warning our enemy about an assassination attempt. But we'd also be aligning ourselves with a faction inside the conspiracy that appeared to have some moral principles. If we blocked the telegram, Davis would likely die on May 15th, eliminating one of our major military adversaries. But it would also mean allowing the organization's plan to partially succeed. "Send it," I said finally. Everyone stared at me. "Abraham," Mary said carefully, "are you sure?" Davis is fighting for principles he believes in, even though I think those principles are wrong. The organization wants him dead not because of his beliefs, but because he's become unpredictable, because he actually cares about the Confederacy rather than just serving their agenda. If we let them kill him, we're allowing them to reshape the world according to their design." Stanton nodded slowly. "You're right. The enemy of our enemy isn't necessarily our friend, but in this case, Davis staying alive serves our interests better than his death. At least with Davis, we know what we're fighting. With whoever the organization would install in his place, we'd be fighting a puppet." "Besides," Hamilton added, "if we warn Davis about the assassination, he might become an inadvertent ally against the organization. The enemy of our enemy." The telegram was completed and sent through secure channels. By morning, Jefferson Davis would know that someone had tried to kill him, and that Abraham Lincoln had saved his life. "Now," I said, "let's go secure those archives before the organization realizes what we're doing." May 3rd, 1863, 3 a.m. Written in the Library of Congress. Dear Diary, I write these words surrounded by the most damning evidence of conspiracy ever assembled. The archives beneath the Library of Congress are vast, room after room of carefully organized documentation of 2 centuries of manipulation. Harrison was true to his word. He led us through hidden entrances, past automated security systems that seemed impossibly advanced, into the heart of the organization's record-keeping. And what we found was simultaneously horrifying and invaluable. Files on every president since Washington, showing how each was monitored, influenced, or controlled. Documents proving that certain historical events we thought were accidents or coincidences were actually orchestrated. Genealogical records showing how the organization tracked and influenced family lines for generations. Most damning of all, detailed financial records showing the money flows between European banking houses and American political figures. Proof that would stand up in any court, that would expose not just individual corruption, but systemic manipulation of our entire government. Stanton's men are now copying everything, creating multiple redundant sets of evidence that will hide in different locations. The organization can't destroy what we've found if they don't know where all the copies are. But as I sit here, reading files about my own family's history, about how my father's death was accelerated to advance my career, about how my sons were monitored for hereditary loyalty markers, I'm struck by a strange thought. The organization tried to control me through manipulation, through planning, through centuries of careful orchestration. But what they created was something they didn't expect. A man who believes in democracy precisely because he knows how fragile it is, how easily it can be corrupted, how much it needs to be defended. They thought they were creating a controllable puppet. Instead, they created their own worst enemy. The American solution will fail. We have 13 days to prevent the May 15th attacks on both Washington and Richmond. We have the evidence to expose the organization's operations. We have dissidents within their ranks ready to testify. And most importantly, we have something the organization can't understand or control: genuine belief that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth, no matter how many centuries-old conspiracies try to destroy it. Mary sits beside me, reading through files about her own family. Rose and Hamilton are coordinating with Harrison's faction to identify other potential defectors. Stanton is planning the military operations needed to secure both Washington and Richmond on May 15th. The war continues, but now we understand what we're really fighting. Not just the Confederacy, not just the banking consortium, but the entire system of hereditary power and control that's tried to dominate humanity for centuries. The candle burns bright in this underground archive, illuminating secrets that were meant to stay hidden forever. Tomorrow, we begin using those secrets as weapons against the people who created them. Democracy isn't a gift handed down from enlightened elites. It's a hard-fought battle against everyone who thinks they have the right to rule over others. Tonight, we won a major battle in that war. But the real fight is just beginning. But stopping the May 15th attacks would require something I never imagined: traveling to Richmond to meet Jefferson Davis face-to-face, and convincing him to trust the man who's been fighting to destroy everything he believes in.